Did you ever look into the mirror when you were a little kid and try to picture what you would look like when you were older? I stood on my toes, imagining a taller version of myself with hips and boobs and curls down to my waist. The same as I looked then, but prettier, smarter, and hopefully with more money. I was raised on America's Next Top Model and theater, so I knew I'd be a performer of some kind and a fashion girl for sure. My reflections slowly blossomed as I got older, growing increasingly individual as I defined the intersections of my identity. There were questions, but I figured the answers would come when the time was right. The thrill of leaving my hometown upon graduation would leave me with the agency to begin crafting my future. I somehow carried my childhood interests right into adulthood with me, refreshing the mediums in which I engaged with them several times along the way. You can only play dress-up for so long. Dress-up suddenly became drag. I woke up one morning and uncovered that it was the ultimate medium to combine everything I loved into one perfect package. My younger self had absolutely no idea that I was on this path, but I think she would be floored. To step into an environment dominated by queer men was an interesting choice, but something about it felt fulfilling. I'd been individual my whole life anyways. I found encouragement in artists just as independent as myself as I continued carving out my own identity. More and more questions arose as I submerged myself within the community, so I focused on latching on to whatever parts resonated within me despite not fully understanding why. Queer culture began seeping into all aspects of my life. Seeing it, breathing it, dreaming of it. I was thrilled about finding my place, but the questions continued to nag. Why did I feel so drawn to drag? What about it made me question my femininity? Do other people feel this way? Was I pushing away my womanhood because of the community's rampant sexism, or was I never a woman to begin with? What changed? Have I just discovered the language to describe how I've always felt? What do all of these labels mean, and which ones best suit the way that I'm feeling? Deep down, I knew this part of me had existed for a long time. I think I discovered them in high school, but I had no idea what that meant for me, or that it mattered. I spent 4 years thinking I was faking it until I developed the courage to listen. I realized it had to be real if I was spending all of my time wishing it would just go away. So much of my identity was grounded in navigating the world as a Black woman that I failed to realize that I could exist as both a Black femme and not a woman at the same time. That part doesn't need to make sense to anyone other than me. My relationship with my gender is my own garden to tend. Why was I denying myself the chance to be free? The signs were all there. I used the same pieces, but I made a different picture. A better picture, honestly. I wanted to force myself to look at my reflection differently. I needed to step outside of myself. My favorite defining feature has always been my mane, a roaring symbol of my ambition, my beauty, my femininity. Who would I be without her? I surprised myself with my lack of hesitation, my dreams of waist-length curls sliced by the sound of a buzzer. Oops. I don't know how my younger self would feel about this. I envisioned weight lifting and an atmosphere of clarity. I had finally listened to the part of me that had been calling out for years. Instead, I entered a dense and lonely cloud of dysphoria, feeling even more confused than ever before. I've never felt more and less like myself. I don't quite recognize my reflection. It keeps shifting and growing. A kaleidoscope of possibilities, liberated but not quite free. Dedicated to feeling at peace in my own skin, I am slowly getting to know them. I hoped I'd understand more by now. My gender, it isn't possible to define using words or images that make any sense. I just knew that something was missing. I was femme, and drag helped me clarify that. This persona I created dips into the world of hyper-femininity, and yet as her I feel completely removed from any restrictions of gender and completely comfortable. This exploration led me to discover that my gender fluctuates on a wider spectrum than I originally anticipated. I wouldn't even call it a spectrum, it's more dimensional than that. I wonder how my younger self would feel about this. She never spent much time thinking about those things, but I do now, and it's overwhelming. I've always been independent, but this pocket of my identity has me feeling incredibly lonely. Dress up isn't a game anymore. It's become the way in which I express myself, the way in which I uncover what feels right to me. I have a hard time picturing my future self now. Nothing is guaranteed. It seems like so many parts of me have shifted so quickly, everything is warped and disjointed. At times, I feel like I'm erasing parts of myself rather than creating something new. But I feel myself growing with each strand upon my head. I try new things along the way, each new wig, each new color offering me something different and fulfilling. The hard part is not quite knowing where I'm headed. I've recently noticed that a lot of my anxiety around my gender was my inability to effectively explain it to someone else. I think I'll shift my focus to understanding my gender for myself and finding peace in that. I don't owe anyone but myself an explanation for my existence or my feelings. And if someday I want to share, like today, then, well, self-liberation frees others around you. I felt it. That's important to me. I look at my little sister and see the spitting image of the kid I was, but with way more things figured out. She knows things about herself at 9 years old that I didn't even discover until 17. And that's a good thing. She'll look into the mirror and imagine so many more possibilities than I ever could. But I'm starting to. And I'm excited for the journey.